Welcome to episode 5 of Coffee with Kelsey. If you haven't listened to the previous 4 episodes yet, be sure to go back and listen to those before diving into today's episode. Let's go ahead and get started. Several months after the hurricane, people were still displaced. There was still an apartment shortage because it was going to take an enormous amount of time to rebuild the structures that have been leveled and damaged. We realized very quickly that it was going to take quite a bit more time to find a place going back. And honestly, we started looking in our original neighborhood where we were before. We went to go see a few places, a few apartments there, and honestly, immediately just said, no, we can't come back here. Months later, it still reeked of dead fish, and it was unbearable. I don't know how people were still living in that area, how they were dealing with it, because just going to that place, it made me feel, honestly, like I was going to just throw up. It was so strong months later. Also, this apartment shortage from all of this devastation also created the prices of apartments to skyrocket. We were going back to an inflated market that had already been inflated because, of course, this is New York City. Everything costs more to live here, apartments, everything. But this was a new high. This was just absolute insanity, what was being asked for apartments. And eventually, we actually settled on a room that was a bit more in the middle of Brooklyn. I can't remember the name of the neighborhood at the moment. We didn't stay there very long, but it was a way for us to get back there a little more quickly, to be able to get our feet on the ground in the city again. Honestly, looking back, that room was not ideal. It was a pretty, I will say, unappealing place, but we were glad to be there. We had looked at other places and we just wanted to be back in New York. We didn't care. We knew we were only going to stay there for a short amount of time and that we would continually look for a new apartment, but it was the best option that we could find at that moment. So at this time, it is rolling into spring, really. It was probably about March, whenever we ended up back in New York. And we were coming back to a lot of unknowns. And the biggest thing that changed was we showed up at the studio and to find out that our coaches were moving, that the studio we were spending all of our time in was closing. We were just like, oh my gosh, now what? What are we going to do? We need to now find a new coach. We need to find a new place to train. We felt like we were starting from scratch. Obviously, where they were moving was going to be very long distance, and this isn't a place that we were looking to move. We wanted to be in New York. So we decided to, get everything together and start preparing ourselves for finding another coach. The first thing that we needed to do was figure out work. We needed to figure out how we were going to get back on our feet in the city, where we were going to work, what we were going to do, get all of our lessons, get all of our students back on track. And this was a project. This is something that we needed to take a few months to really get ourselves established and get ourselves back on track with everything and be able to make an income, because not only did we still need to find an apartment, a place that was more permanent than where we were, we also needed to financially prepare for a new coach and to financially prepare going into a new training space. And we didn't quite know what to expect or how long it was going to take, but we needed to get everything as situated as possible, as quickly as possible. We started to feel out and try out some new spaces and studios to practice in, just to see what we liked and where we wanted to be. And in that process, we ended up at a brand new studio down in Herald Square, right next to Macy's. And I loved this studio. It was absolutely gorgeous floors, beautiful studio spaces. And over there, we met another coach, very, very famous, infamous former world champion who we were very interested in working with. But at that time, we didn't know if she would be willing to take on any new couples because she was very, very busy. We really were interested in working with her. We just wanted to see what the vibe was and if she'd be willing to take on another couple. So we started showing up to rounds and for run-throughs. And rounds or run-throughs are like competition simulation. So if you go to a ballroom dance competition, you'll see different heats and for different dances. So all the couples go on, all the couples come off, all the couples go on, and they repeat this for every dance that they have for, we'll say, the first round, the quarter, the semifinal, and the final. So this is like a competition preparation. After going to these run-throughs for a few weeks, we decided to ask and see if it was possible to get on her schedule to try lessons with her. And to our surprise and our pleasure, of course, we were able to get on the schedule. And not only did we get on the schedule, we also got on the regular schedule, and she even scheduled us like early in the morning. So she didn't have a slot for us at first. So we ended up going to the studio to take lessons with her at 7 and 8 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, 7 and 8 a.m. in the morning. Being ready to dance full out in lessons at 7 a.m. meant being at the studio at the latest to get warmed up at 6:30 in the morning. This was a massive, massive change and shock to our systems that we needed to get used to very, very quickly, as soon as possible, and make it look like nothing was wrong, even though we were so exhausted because it was so early. It was a complete shock to our system. And not only getting to the studio at the latest 6:30 in the morning, we also had to, we were living about an hour and 15 minutes away. By the time you leave the apartment and walk to the train, then take the train, then walk from the train to the studio, it would take about an hour and a half. So that meant sometimes leaving before 5 a.m. So this was a massive, massive shock to the system. This was gruelingly early to go and dance full out, but we also knew that this could possibly lead to some very, very good things for us in the future. And we knew that she was such an amazing technician and that we could really, really learn a lot from her. And looking at the couples that she trained and worked with and that were hers, like on her own, we wanted a piece of that. We wanted to get a piece of that amazing quality that she was able to pull out and produce from her dancers. Let's leave it there for today, and we'll pick up where we left off next time. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode of Coffee with Kelsey. Be sure to follow the podcast so you know when the next episode is released, and I'll see you next time.